And you are a guardian angel and designer. What you talking about, man? You are from the Bronx, bro. You are not from Harlem. Why do you keep thinking that you are from Harlem, bro? You are not from Harlem. I did not grow up with you, man. I did not grow up with you. Contrary to what you believe, never needed nowhere to stay. You act like that couch. You was a fan. You begged us. You are a fan.
He taught me how to rap, and Cam always made sure I was on every single album he had. He was like, boy, once you figure out how to rap the same way you act in these streets, it's going to work for you. Just keep going. And that's all so I always got to give credit where credit is due. There would be no Jim Jones if it wasn't for them guys.
What if I told you one of hip-hop's loudest bosses just got exposed as a backstage fan who was handed everything? Tonight, the myth of Jim Jones doesn't just crack, it collapses. Because Mai and Cameron didn't throw shade, they dropped a ruthless confession that flips 20 years of Dipset history upside down. Imagine scrolling your feed and seeing Cam looking dead into the camera saying, "You were our fan." 4 words that hit harder than any diss track. Then Mai comes in with the quiet kill shot. "We taught you how to rap," not as a joke, as a statement, as a reminder. Suddenly, all those stories Jim told about being capo, CEO, co-founder, they don't sound legendary anymore. They sound rehearsed. Old interviews are resurfacing. Clips are being slowed down, replayed, dissected like a crime scene. One moment, Jim is humble, thanking Maya and Cam for putting him on. The next, he's rewriting himself as the architect, the mastermind, the one who made diplomats. So which is real, the student or the self-proclaimed boss? Tonight, we're tearing into the leaks, the contradictions, the secret recordings, and the street witnesses who say Jim's whole career wasn't built. It was gifted. This isn't just a story about beef. This is the night Jim Jones' legacy goes on trial. And when the receipts start playing back to back, you're going to ask yourself one question. Was Jim ever really capo, or just a superfan with a handout and a microphone? The city didn't even wake up before the chaos hit. Phones were vibrating off nightstands, group chats exploding, timelines melting like wax. A leaked clip, blurry, shaky, but lethal, slammed across every platform. And suddenly the entire culture froze. In the video, Cameron sits back in a dimly lit room, that cold Harlem confidence dripping off him, and he drops the line that detonates the myth of Jim Jones in real time. "You were our fan." The room behind him goes silent. The internet goes insane. Within minutes, the clip is everywhere. TikTok, Twitter, Instagram Reels, shared, remixed, slowed down, captioned, studied like a lost scripture. And while fans argue, Mashi jumps in with an even colder revelation. "We taught you how to rap." Not metaphorically, literally taught him. Flow, cadence, pockets, delivery, like a masterclass before masterclasses existed. Suddenly, Jim's entire origin story doesn't look like a hustle. It looks like a handout he spent 20 years turning into mythology. And while the world tries to process that, an older clip resurfaces, one people forgot about until now. An interview from the early 2000s. Jim, younger, quieter, humble, practically whispering. "Mai taught me how to rap. Cam made sure I was on every album. There would be no Jim Jones without them." The internet stitches that clip side by side with modern Jim, claiming he was the CEO of Dipset, the co-founder, the builder, the backbone. The comments go ballistic. Fans pause the video at specific frames, analyzing his facial expressions, pointing out how his story expanded over time like a balloon full of borrowed air. Every contradiction becomes a new meme. Every denial becomes a new plot twist. Then another alleged leak drops. A voice note from someone claiming they were there in the early days. The voice describes Jim not as a leader, not as a visionary, but as the cool dude with the free apartment after his grandmother died. According to this mysterious storyteller, that's how Jim first got down. Not through talent, not through leadership, through location, through convenience. He had a crib where people could crash, hang out, chill. And to hear Cam tell it in another clip, Jim wouldn't just let people stay there out of generosity. He would beg them to come through, excited to be part of the circle, already buzzing off mixtapes tearing through Harlem blocks. Social media analysts, self-appointed but loud, start breaking down every detail. They map out timelines, compare interviews, dig into archives. One viral thread lays out the evolution step by step. Jim saying he was taught by Mashi, then saying he learned on his own, then saying he built Dipset, then saying he co-founded the movement. All while footage exists contradicting every upgraded version he's told. The conclusion from thousands of fans? Jim might not just be stretching the truth, he might be rewriting history entirely. But the drama doesn't stop at old memories. Because right when fans start siding with Cam and Macy, here comes Joel Santana with an unexpected twist. Calm, measured, but explosive. He says that when he met Cam and Jim, the diplomat's name already existed. They were already tight. Already moving. He claims he wasn't there for the origin, but saw enough to know Jim wasn't the architect. In a rare moment of clarity, he says, "I don't claim I made the diplomats. I made Dipset, the 2 letters, the look, but I didn't make the name." That admission alone cracks open a new layer of truth. Joel is humble where Jim is loud, honest where Jim is evasive. And that contrast throws gasoline onto the fire. Meanwhile, the legendary moment that almost broke Dipset years ago gets dragged back into the spotlight. Jim going on stage with 50 Cent while Cam was beefing with him. Joel explains it like it's business. But fans aren't buying it. They splice footage of Jim smiling with 50 next to Cam on the phone, screaming at 50 on Hot 97. Betrayal becomes the trending word of the week. People start saying Jim didn't want to stand behind Cam forever. He wanted the spotlight, he wanted the stage, and he didn't care whose platform he had to borrow to get it. Then the next interview leaks. Choke No Joke jumps in with his own perspective, one that sounds like support at first, but quickly becomes a twisted weapon. He says there is no Dipset without Jim, but then explains Jim's role not as creator, but as muscle. The underboss, the enforcer, the one who made sure Cam didn't get robbed, pressed, or disrespected. Suddenly, Jim looks less like a mastermind and more like someone hired for security. And while that sounds like respect, the streets know the truth. The muscle doesn't run the organization. The muscle protects the people who do. Clips of Choke's words get snatched and turned into controversy. Fans argue back and forth. Was Jim essential or replaceable? Was he a protector or a hanger-on? And the more people talk, the more each clip contradicts the next. Jim's story doesn't line up. Cam's story sounds too specific to be a lie. Machi sounds too calm to be making things up. Joel sounds too objective to be biased. Choke No Joke sounds too emotional to be neutral. The truth is hiding somewhere in the middle. But nobody wants the middle. They want the bombshell. And then Cam drops the coldest moment yet. A story he says he never used as ammo, never told, never weaponized. But now he's done holding back. He says there was a moment years ago when real pressure showed up. When real street dudes pulled up. When things got real. And according to Cam's version, Jim didn't fight, didn't hold down the team, didn't stand tall, He ran, literally ran. Into a hotel, onto a beach, into the water. Cam says he never clowned him for it because he's not built like that. But if Jim wants to drag up old stories, Cam is willing to bring the real ones out. And suddenly the entire narrative of Capo, the frontline enforcer, the fearless leader, cracks in half. The comments go nuclear. People start saying that Jim didn't just embellish his history, he invented a persona. They post gifs of characters running into the ocean. They remix Cam's story into animations. They neutralize years of tough guy imagery with one alleged moment of panic. Jim tries to respond with laughter. He says lies are entertaining, truth is boring. He claims he doesn't care. But every time someone presses him with a direct question, he freezes up, pivots, threatens to tell the real story, or resorts to insults, like telling Mahe he needs a diet. And the internet sees it for what it is, a man lashing out with punchlines because he doesn't have proof. And just when you think the spiral is slowing down, another voice enters the chat. Someone who claims they were in the studio when Dipset's earliest mixtapes were made. Someone who says Jim didn't walk into the movement as a leader. He walked in as a fan. A cool dude, a helpful dude. But not a founder, not a creator, not a builder. And when that audio hits the internet, the debate shifts instantly from did Jim play a part to did Jim exaggerate his entire legacy? The walls close in fast, and then comes the cliffhanger. Because right as fans settle into one side of the argument, a new rumor erupts. Cam and Mahe allegedly have unreleased footage. Something that will blow the story open even further. Something that proves Jim's narrative isn't just shaky, but fabricated. And when insiders claim that footage might drop any day now, the internet stops breathing. The internet hadn't even recovered from the first wave of explosions before the next detonation hit. It started with a single cryptic post. 3 fire emojis, a camera emoji, and the words, "Y'all ain't ready," no names, no context, no explanation. But it came from someone close to the Dipset circle, someone whose silence had always been louder than his words. And in seconds, the entire culture braced itself. Because if part 1 was the earthquake, what dropped next was the aftershock that split the whole landscape open. The rumor spreads first, Cam and Mai allegedly sitting on undisclosed footage. Footage that changes everything, footage that doesn't just expose contradictions. It erases the myth of Jim Jones entirely. Suddenly, everyone is talking. Reddit threads unravel like crime scene boards. Barbershops erupt in shouting matches. Even celebrities start posting reaction videos, telling fans to buckle up. And before anyone can get their bearings, a grainy screenshot leaks. 2 silhouettes in a studio, one said to be Jim, the other Cam with a date stamp from the early 2000s. No audio, no context, just enough to send the timeline spiraling into hysteria. People freeze frame, zoom in, enhance it like it's NASA footage. Everyone becomes an investigator overnight. And right when the internet hits maximum chaos, a new interview surfaces. This time from someone who never speaks, never trolls, never clout chases. A quiet figure from Harlem who claims he watched the Dipset empire rise from dirt to diamond. He speaks slowly, carefully, like every word could spark a war. And what he says sends shockwaves through every corner of hip-hop. He claims Jim wasn't the boss, wasn't the capo, wasn't even the co-founder. According to him, Jim's real position was exactly what Cam implied. The fan who became muscle, the guy who got trusted with errands, safety, presence, but never strategy. Jim was cool, he says in the clip. Good energy, reliable. But leader? Nah, he wasn't calling shots, he was following them. Fans explode. People argue nonstop. How much of this is truth? How much is bias? But the craziest part is still coming, because Joel Santana, usually diplomatic, usually calm, gets pressed about whether the Dipset name existed before Jim. And his answer is so brutally honest, it becomes a cultural moment. He says, "When I met them, the Diplomats was already a thing. It wasn't created around me. It wasn't created around Jim. It was already there." Already established. Clips of that sentence go viral immediately. That one moment becomes the unofficial theme of this entire saga. The foundation was already in place, and Jim wasn't the architect he's been claiming to be. But the world doesn't rest. Every new leak spawns 10 new theories. One clip emerges of Jim passionately declaring he and Cam were partners, equals builders together. But fans line it up next to an older clip where he positions himself as the student Maye taught from the ground up. The contradictions are too obvious, too loud, too unbelievable. And just like that, social media births the term legacy leeching. People start using it in comments, captions, reaction videos. They say Jim didn't just borrow legacy, he fed off it, shaped it, repackaged it, then resold it as his own origin story. As the accusations spread, Jim suddenly takes a different approach. Instead of laughing it off, he gets sharper, colder. In a new interview, he starts hinting at secrets of his own. "Y'all don't want me to tell the truth," he says, staring into the camera. "I know things too." The internet immediately catches the shift. He's not denying anything, he's threatening to retaliate. It feels less like a comeback and more like a cornered man throwing shadows. And then the next twist drops, this time from the streets. A Harlem OG, someone older, someone respected, hops on a live stream and starts talking like he's been holding this in for 20 years. He says Jim didn't enter Dipset as a rapper. He entered as the friend who needed guidance, the guy who hung around because he loved the energy, not because he contributed to it. He says Jim didn't even have a style until Mahe molded one into him, and Cam crafted the image. And the Dipset sound was already built without him. Then the OG says something nobody expected. Jim was learning the game while they were living it. That sentence alone sends Twitter into meltdown. People start making joke videos. Acts like creator was actually intern. But the worst part for Jim? Even his fans can't defend the footage coming out. Clip after clip shows him contradicting himself. Clip after clip shows Cam and Mahe telling consistent stories, while Jim's versions shift like wet cement. And then the unexpected betrayal hits. From inside Jim's own camp. Choke. No joke starts implying there are things Jim doesn't want revealed. He hints at times Jim exaggerated stories, times he boosted his role, times he painted himself tougher than he really was. Suddenly, the man meant to defend him is accidentally validating the very accusations made against him. And fans catch on fast. They splice together every moment where Choke contradicts Jim's claims without even realizing it. They make viral edits calling it accidental exposure, Jim's downfall. Jim sees the clips. You can tell. In his next video, he looks agitated, eyes darting, voice tight. He tries to laugh it off, tries to clown Maya again, tries to call Cam jealous. But the comments don't support him anymore. Nobody's buying it. Every time he attempts to change the subject, someone drops a time-stamped clip in the chat proving he said the opposite years ago. And then comes the story, the one Cam hinted at before, the one he never wanted to bring up. A blogger suddenly posts a detailed retelling of the alleged beach incident. According to this dramatized version, when certain dudes from the street pulled up, real pressure hit, and Cam stood there ready. But Jim? Jim panicked. Jim ran. Jim sprinted into the sand, into the water, desperation pouring off him. And while nobody mocks him, fear is human. The story destroys the image he's been selling for decades. Someone edits a montage of Jim talking tough, juxtaposed with ocean waves crashing. It goes viral instantly. The comments are brutal, the jokes are relentless. Jim becomes a meme. And here's where things turn psychological. Jim's next live stream is different. He starts stuttering, he talks in circles, he makes vague threats again. Y'all don't want me to start talking. But he still doesn't address the main claims. He never denies being a fan first, never denies being taught, never denies the contradictions. He shifts, dodges, spins. Fans start saying he's unraveling, he's spiraling, he's losing control of his own narrative. Meanwhile, Cam posts a selfie eating cereal. No caption, no comments, no stress. And that, right there, becomes the ultimate power move. It tells the world Jim isn't a threat, Jim isn't competition, Jim isn't even the target anymore. He's entertainment. Celebrities chime in now. Rapper after rapper posts reactions. Some laugh, some shake their heads. But the loudest voices start saying the same thing. Jim didn't lose a beef. He lost his legacy. And then, when it feels like the dust is settling, the next explosion hits. A mysterious account posts that Cam and Mahe's unseen footage is hours long, unfiltered, and career-ending. Whether that's true or not doesn't matter. The rumor alone ignites the culture all over again. People comment, drop the tapes. Memes flood the timeline. Jim's career loading, 0%. Reaction channels prep for emergency live streams. Because now the world believes the worst is still coming. And the cliffhanger settles in like smoke in a closed room. What happens when the real footage drops? And Jim Jones can't run from the truth anymore? The countdown to destruction didn't start with an announcement. It started with a whisper. A single tweet from a burner account with no followers, no profile picture, no past activity. Just one sentence that detonated across the culture like a missile fired in the dark. The footage is real. No links, no clips, no proof. But that didn't matter. Within minutes, the tweet spread like wildfire across every platform. Screenshots on Instagram, reaction threads on TikTok, panicked comments under Cam and Mahe's most recent posts. Fans didn't even care if the account was legit. The idea alone that there existed hours of unseen, unedited, unfiltered material that exposed everything was enough to send the entire hip-hop ecosystem spiraling into hysteria. And before long, several insiders came forward, confirming what everyone suspected. Cam and Mae weren't bluffing. They had been holding on to something nuclear for years. At this point, Jim Jones wasn't dealing with beef anymore. He was dealing with prophecy. People weren't asking if the footage was dropping. They were asking when and how bad it would be. Fan pages started posting countdown timers. Reaction channels scheduled emergency live streams. Blogs began writing pre-exposure obituaries for Jim's career as if it were a fallen soldier. The anticipation grew so intense that even celebrities who usually stayed out of drama began tuning in, posting cryptic emojis, live streaming their reactions to rumors, speculating, dissecting, adding gasoline to a fire that was already burning out of control. And then things got worse. Because in the middle of the frenzy, a new leak emerged. This time, it wasn't clips. It wasn't a voice note. It wasn't a blurry screenshot or an out-of-context interview. It was a message, a DM allegedly from someone who used to be in Jim's inner circle. The message claimed that the footage Cam and Mahe had wasn't just embarrassing, it was devastating. The leak described scenes of Jim contradicting himself about Dipset's origins, scenes of him admitting he wasn't a founder, moments where he acknowledged he learned rap from Mai, and, worst of all, alleged recordings where he talked down on the very people who lifted him up. One line from the message went viral instantly. He wasn't capo, he was carried. Those 5 words broke the internet. Fans plastered them on memes, t-shirts, tweets, captions, TikTok edits. People began arguing whether Jim had ever been the man he portrayed, or if he simply became addicted to a persona he didn't earn. And the more the debate spread, the deeper it cut. Jim tried fighting back, but this time his moves felt desperate. He went live. Pacing around the room, talking faster than usual, eyes darting off-screen like he was checking for ghosts. He said people were lying on his name, fabricating stories, trying to tear him down. But every time he tried to refute a claim, someone on social media would immediately drop an old clip contradicting him. Screenshotted quotes flew across the timeline like bullets. Fans created side-by-side videos showing Jim changing his story over the years. Reaction channels exposed inconsistencies in his interviews with frame-by-frame precision. The internet turned into a courtroom. Jim was the defendant, and the evidence, real or perceived, was stacking higher by the hour. Just when Jim began gaining sympathy from some fans, people saying maybe he was being unfairly targeted, another bombshell hit. This one came from someone nobody expected, another Harlem figure who had been neutral for decades. Someone known for never stirring the pot. Someone considered diplomatic, respected, balanced. When he spoke, the culture listened. And he said he had seen the footage. According to him, the videos were ugly, humiliating, and proof that Jim painted himself into a role he never earned. He didn't reveal details. He didn't need to. His reputation gave the leak credibility. And in that moment, the entire weight of Harlem history came crashing down on Jim's shoulders. The narrative shifted again. Fans who once defended Jim now began questioning him. Supporters dropped hashtags like show the tapes and Dipset truth. Even verified rappers chimed in, dropping cryptic comments like, I knew something was off and the streets remember. The pressure mounted to unbearable heights. Jim snapped. In a late-night live stream, one that instantly trended worldwide, Jim exploded. Not physically, not violently, but emotionally. His voice cracked. His sentences stumbled. He lashed out at liars, at fake friends, at people using him for clout. He insisted he built Dipset, that he bled for it, that he sacrificed for the movement while others coasted. But every time he tried to establish dominance, another viewer dropped a time-stamped clip in the comments proving the opposite. The meltdown became an event in itself. Reaction creators clipped it, slowed it down, zoomed in, analyzing every second like it was historical footage. Jim's anger, his hurt, his confusion, it all became part of the spectacle. The public wasn't just watching a man defend his legacy, they were watching a man realize that his legacy was slipping away in real time. And then, just when the tension reached its peak, Cameron dropped a message. No video, no voice note, no screenshot. Just one sentence. All truth comes to light. The internet erupted. People begged him to post the footage. They spammed his comments, DM'd him, tagged him in every meme, every clip, every speculation thread. It was the digital equivalent of a crowd gathering around a boxing ring, chanting for someone to throw the knockout punch. But Cam didn't say anything else. He didn't post another clue. He didn't tease a date. He didn't deny the footage existed. And in the absence of denial, silence became confirmation. Meanwhile, Machi, calm, almost amused, posted a selfie with the caption, "We weren't lying." No context, no elaboration, just reassurance that the storm had only begun. Meanwhile, Jim's team scrambled to do damage control. PR people contacted blogs, urging them to remove negative posts. Associates dropped comments defending him. But none of it mattered because the culture wasn't waiting for explanations anymore. They were waiting for the truth bomb promised by the legends who built the movement Jim claimed to have shaped. And here's where the psychological twist hit hardest. People weren't even asking if the footage would end Jim's career. They were now asking how long he would last after it dropped. Would he go on an apology tour? Would he disappear for a while? Would he double down and fight? Would he try to rebrand? Or would he crumble under the weight of exposure? The culture speculated, fantasized, predicted outcomes. And while everyone talked, argued, dissected, something even more shocking happened. A new anonymous account, one claimed to be tied to a former Dipset affiliate, posted a message. The tapes don't just expose Jim, they expose everything. Suddenly, the world stopped. Because if this was true, then this wasn't a Jim Jones downfall story anymore. It was a Dipset implosion, a rewriting of Harlem history, a re-examination of loyalty, betrayal, ego, and power dynamics inside one of the most iconic rap movements ever created. The cliffhanger hits like a gunshot. If those tapes drop, who else gets exposed? And what happens when the truth burns hotter than the legend that built an empire? Listen, if you made it to the end of this breakdown, then you already know this isn't just a story. This is history unfolding in real time. This is legacy on trial. This is the kind of cultural earthquake people will be talking about for years. But here's the truth. You haven't even seen the final explosion yet. More leaks are coming, more voices are going to step forward, more footage, more contradictions, more revelations that will flip everything upside down. And if you're not locked in with this channel, you're going to miss the moment it all drops. Don't let that happen. Right now is the moment to hit like, because the algorithm only pushes videos like this into the light when you choose to lift them up. Hit comment and tell the world whose side you're on, because trust me, every opinion in this story becomes part of the narrative. And most importantly, subscribe right now before the next wave hits. Turn on notifications so you don't wake up to the internet screaming about a leak you never saw. You do not want to be the person hearing about the next bombshell secondhand. When the footage drops, when the truth gets exposed, when the final twist lands, you need to be here first. This isn't entertainment. This is a cultural wildfire, a real-time unraveling of the myth, the music, the movement. And if you're not subscribed, you're standing outside the blaze instead of watching from the front row. So like the video, drop a comment, subscribe right now. Because the next revelation could land tonight. And missing it isn't just FOMO, it's dangerous.